Hello and welcome to episode 121 of the Brass Junkies. I am your host, Andrew Hitz, and I am joined by the ravishing Lance LaDuke. Lance, how are you today?
Really good.
Well, that was super awkward. Hey, 121 is a palindrome.
It is.
When I was a kid, I used to go around telling people that fireman was a palindrome, and it was all just a goal to see how many people I could get to say Namariff.
How many was it? 121.
It was a lot. Yeah, I'd be like, no, say it backwards, slowly. Fireman. Like, no, it's Namariff. And then I'd say thank you, and that was it. I was a weird child. It's good that I was bizarrely good at the tuba, so yeah, it gave me a little self-worth. But anyway.
It's like when I tried to get Pat Sheridan's kid to say a word that started with f and ended with uck, and he wouldn't do it. And I was like, what's wrong with fire truck?
The last time I was over at Pat's, his son and his daughter were both like having breakfast, and I had just gotten there, and kids love nothing more than when you make fun of their parents, right? When you're an alleged like adult, and then you make fun of, and I was making fun of Pat for something, and I I said to his daughter, I said, your dad is like really smart, but he's not that bright, and she just erupted in laughter. She said, "Yep." I was like, this is exactly what I'm talking about, and they were both howling. So
that's it.
And Pat was like, "That's fair." He was like,
"What we do?" Yeah.
He's like, "I could fight." No. This will be over faster. Hitz is just going to double down if I try to push back. So
lean in.
See, he's wise. I guess he is kind of bright, actually. Yeah, he's actually one of the smartest people and brightest people I know. But you never let the truth get in the way of a good joke.
Amen.
We have a brand new newsletter, people. If you go to pedalnotemedia.com/TBJ-newsletter, or you can just, since that's a long URL, you can just click on the link in the show notes. Then you can sign up for that. And if you sign up by October 31st, otherwise known as Halloween, you
2019.
Get a chance to, you'll be in a drawing to hang out with Lance and I live for a phone call. So you can chat with us, and you can also bring a friend along. They can either be in the room, or we can just add them remotely. So if you want the chance to have the honor, the once in a lifetime opportunity to talk to Lance and you can ask us about mouthpieces. We don't know much about. We'll just tell you to buy a Parker mouthpiece, and that'll be the end of that. About equipment, you can talk to us about the Brass Junkie. You can ask career advice. You can ask us anything. So it will be your time. So
you can ask us about equipment, or you can ask us about stuff that we know about.
The phone call will last no longer than 90 seconds, so you got to come in. It's got to be really tight, and get your elevator pitch in. So, and then Lance and I'll joke around with each other. Sorry, time's up. No, just kidding. But that'll be fun. So, also just a couple of other announcements is that Apple Podcasts, we are up to 187 ratings. If you could help us push over 200, you would be awesome. And if you're a real overachiever, like Lance and I were growing up.
Of course. I reviewed all the podcasts I listened to when I was growing up.
You can leave a review if you're the overachiever type. We would really appreciate that. And last week's performance and pedagogy podcast, which some of you are like, what the hell is that? Oh. So there are 4 podcasts that are available to Patreon subscribers only, which are monthly. And performance and pedagogy is one of the ones that I do every month. And this months in September was, so I should say last month, since this is coming out on October 1st, I was joined by my ravishing co-host, Lance LaDuke. So if you want to learn more about performance and pedagogy and the other 3 podcasts, you can go to pedalnotemedia.com/Patreon, and then you can click on the Brass Junkies to learn more, and then you will see all of the stuff that Patreon can unlock for you. Today's guest is somebody that we have literally been trying to schedule for over a year, like maybe 2 years. I mean, like casually, I've been trying to get him since the very beginning, but like we've been actively trying to get him booked for 18 to 24 months. This is trumpet player extraordinaire Wayne Dumaine. You're about to hear. I think he is the busiest trumpet player in New York City, and I'm not kidding. If he's not, then there's maybe one other person who is, and I have no idea who that person would be. I mean, that's how busy this dude is, and he conducts, and he's unbelievable. So yeah, he's really, really great. So
I'm not quite sure how he does it all.
I don't know either. Yeah,
because he teaches school band, he runs the brass program at NYU Steinhardt. He plays all the time. He does all the stuff for the Met. He plays on Broadway. He does his quintet gigs. He's like, I don't understand.
We asked him how he does it all, and he answered, and we didn't have any more of an understanding after he was done answering, because all I heard was like something about like score study until 2 a.m., and then he said something about waking up at 5 a.m., and I was like, so...
I was doing that math too.
Do you like hang upside down for the 3 hours? Like, and then, like, how does that... like, what? Anyway, and he is always like posting about being at softball games and about everything else, like on Facebook. He's like a totally present dad. I don't know. Maybe he has a clone, Lance. Yeah, I don't know.
Whoa.
I've never been in the room as both at the same time as both Wayne Dumaines.
Me neither.
Yeah, we'll have to get to the bottom of that. But you're going to love this interview talking about working with Bernstein back in the day, and also the bonus episode. He talks about working with Sam, like this gig he did on a barge in the middle of Lake Champlain with Sam and Frank Vignola. Some really, really great stuff.
Oh, yeah, playing with Prince.
Yeah, and
it's a really cool one.
We talked to him about recording with Prince and his trip to Paisley Park. That was in this episode you're about to hear. You're going to love this. So without further ado, let us get to the conversation that we had with trumpet player and conductor extraordinaire Wayne Dumaine. And today on the Brass Junkies, we are joined by someone that we have been trying to get on for a very long time, but he does way too many things, and he is a fully present father. So he's like always at like softball games and picnics and all of that, and we couldn't convince him to like ditch the family he loves to talk to us for free. But we found a time, and he's like he's checking the lights. Did you like, Lance, how he tried on multiple headphones like it was like mouthpieces, right? You know, it was like
it's
anyway.
Crazy, dude.
So we are joined today by Wayne Dumaine. Wayne, how are you?
Great, pleasure to be here.
Man, it's so good to have you here. And before we go any further, I have to congratulate you on the Blues winning the Stanley Cup.
Oh my God, that was absolutely phenomenal.
It really wasn't actually.
Yeah, couldn't believe it. I understand. I understand where you're from. Yes, but my father took me to the Stanley Cup playoffs when I was 5 years old.
No kidding.
Against the Boston Bruins, Game 3. And ever since then, the Blues have made the playoffs like 41 times and lost in the first round. And now I'm 54, and we finally won.
Yeah, man.
So it was pretty phenomenal. I never let up. I never lose. I never go to other teams, although I questioned becoming a Devils fan.
Right.
But I just couldn't pull the trigger. But that was one of the happiest moments in my life.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've now seen the Bruins lose in the Stanley Cup Finals 4 times in my life, but I saw them win one, and that one was huge. So
that was pretty incredible.
Yep, it was pretty incredible. I'm guessing you enjoyed Game 7 just a little bit more than I did. It was pretty rough for the first it was pretty even for the first 10 minutes, and then the ice was tilted. But then they changed which direction it was tilted when they kept on switching ends.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, so congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So Wayne is one of the busiest trumpet players in New York City, which is not an easy title to attain. You teach at NYU. In fact, you're the head of brass there, correct?
Correct. Yes, my third year.
And talk to us about the program at NYU.
The program at NYU is pretty amazing. We have 2 great orchestras, actually, which I am conducting now. And there's brass choir. We have great chamber music, and we have a phenomenal faculty. Peter Bond just joined our faculty from the Met Opera. The best part is that I get to hire people to come and give classes. Just getting people from the Philadelphia Orchestra, musicians who have gone to school and quit school and started their own bands, people who are on top of the business aspect of music today come in and give classes, and my students are learning at an alarming rate from people who are out there in the business doing what they want to do, and it's pretty amazing. And I was sort of deer in the headlights my first year, being that I'd never had an administrative job. I've always just been an adjunct teacher at Princeton, Columbia, those places. But to actually run a program and be in charge of 22 musicians is quite a challenge. But I see progress, and that's all I ask for. And my students are doing really well.
What was the biggest challenge in taking on an admin role like that?
Returning emails on time. And the more you return, the more you have to return.
I was going to say, you can't return them too quickly, or else you get a reputation.
Yeah, yeah. I'm on my phone more than what I want to be. But there's so many aspects to, and so many departments in NYU too. And then you collaborate with the recording department, dance department. It's endless amounts of communication.
Right.
Beyond what I would have expected. So now I just turn off my phone for a couple hours and then go crawl in a hole for an hour and return emails. And then, so that I'm not just on my phone at rehearsals all the time. And during shows, I don't want to be on my phone return. But that's really the main challenge, is just staying on top of everything, dealing with all your students' needs. I get a lot of emails about we need more money, just everything. So I have to.
That's not just my school.
Yeah. So it's fun though. It's fun because I only have 22 students. It's not like University of Michigan where I'm in charge of 250 students. So it's just enough for a symphony orchestra, 2 symphony orchestras, and I can actually focus on every single student. It's pretty amazing.
That's pretty good. You don't do any of the recruiting except for the trumpets?
I do some recruiting, not much. At NYU, people want to come to NYU. So I get a lot of emails and calls from high school students, from grad students who want to come. And so they come and take a lesson with me. I give them a tour of the school. We also have a summer brass workshop for high school students and grad students and college students, where we recruit from there. So not a lot of recruiting, but I do some.
The other most often challenging part of a gig like that is in fundraising. Do you have to deal with, you mentioned the money thing, but do you have to go defend your budget or ask for more bread often, or what's that like?
Yes. I have to fundraise on my own if I want the results. If I want things done in my department, I have to go out and find the money. So that's a challenge too. That was new to me. I happen to know some people who trust me, and I can
what's that like?
Meet with them and tell them exactly what I need, and I sometimes get results. So yes, that's something that I'm not really used to. I'm used to negotiating contracts with our quintet and negotiating contracts, but actually asking for money from another human being was a little nerve-wracking at first. But if you're prepared and you're honest and you know exactly where the money is going to, I've been successful so far.
If you don't mind, let's stay with the negotiating thing. That's a thing we haven't really talked about too much. Like what when you face there's a presenter that wants to bring your group there, what are the most common obstacles? I mean, cash is the fee is obviously one of them, but how do you deal with the other stuff, or do you use, the travel or lodging against the fee? Like, what's that usually look like?
Basically, with our brass quintet, we play a lot of graduations, and each year we raise the fees, things like that. We don't really tour much anymore. We'll maybe do 1 or 2 road trips, but those are already set. But it's basically local gigs. Someone who wants to hire us to do children's concerts, and we'll say, well, what do you charge? And years ago, 10, 20 years ago, I used to always undercharge. It was always some low figure because I was afraid to ask for what I really believed that we deserved. And so it got to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to ask what I really think we deserve. And in most cases, they give it to you. If you're just honest and clear and like, here's what we get charged for this, here's what we pay for this. And they're pretty clear with it. So I get really used to asking for the fees in a manner in which I really know that we deserved, as opposed to being shy and reserved and like, okay, we'll do it for this. And but basically it's just, we have 12 different graduations that we do with the Manhattan Brass. So we just sort of up the fees $50, $100 every year, just so that we're staying in touch with, our society and inflation and those things. So
what are you trying to earn a living wage or something?
Yeah. Can you believe that? It's like, wow.
Well, and if you end up taking the lower paying gig, unless you're just like, you're doing a favor for a buddy, you just resent it. It's just like you feel bad the whole time. You feel bad when you took the contract, and you feel bad when you're doing the gig, and you feel bad telling the other players.
Yeah, basically. I mean, but we all want to play. They end up playing it. But like I said, that was 10, 20 years ago. Now every gig we do, it's what we deserve, and it works out in the end, and everyone's happy, and it's the product that we always give out is worth what we get paid.
Amen awesome. To that. I've always said that if nobody ever says no because you charge too much, and they very frequently won't tell you that you charge too much, they just won't hire you. But if no one ever thinks you don't charge or that you're charging too much, then you're not charging enough. If every single person says, of course I'll buy that car for $10,000, that's because the car's worth $25,000, and it's like a no-brainer. So yeah, but that
absolutely.
And also it can be a form of hiding to not charge much, because if you charge a lot, then you have to bring it, right? I mean, you can't just do an okay job if you charge a lot, so it's good. I mean, it's like it's motivating as well, because you got to play the crap out of a graduation ceremony if you're paying, charging a premium for it, which I think
absolutely.
is good. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to talk to you. You were a member of one of the most important performances that I ever witnessed as an audience member. This was back in 1990 at Tanglewood. I was about a week shy of turning 15, and that was the summer that I first worked with Sam Palafian, and it was like a massive summer in my life. And I'll give you a chance to comment on him, in a second. But you were in the Tanglewood Music Center Orchestra for a performance with Leonard Bernstein conducting, which ended up being his second to last concert that he ever conducted in his career. Because he passed away shortly thereafter. And this was Copland's Third Symphony, and it was one of the most inspired, just jaw-dropping concerts I've ever seen in my life. Can you talk about what it was like to work with him in that concert and at the end of his life?
Absolutely. When I arrived at Juilliard in 1986, one of my goals was just always spend my summer at a summer music festival. I never, ever wanted to work a job outside of music, and that was one of my goals. So I think the first summer I went to Spoleto and played operas in Italy. And then the following summer in 88, I was always going to the New York Philharmonic to see Bernstein whenever he would conduct. And I just fell in love with him and what he was doing and how phenomenal the concerts were. So I auditioned for Tanglewood. I got in. And apparently there was a 2-year rule at Tanglewood. You do 88, 89. So I did those 2 years. I played Tchaik 4 with Bernstein. We did his Songfest. And suddenly I was auditioning for Pacific, and I wanted to go overseas again. But Tanglewood contacted me saying, well, listen, Leonard Bernstein wants to take the orchestra overseas. Right. Would you like to come back for a third year? And I'm like, hell yeah. And we're doing Copland's Third Symphony. And I'm like, well, and I just heard them play that. At the New York Philharmonic. Bernstein always tested out. Well, actually, yeah. So anyway, so I go back to Tanglewood for the third summer, and we're all ready to go, and we play that concert. Leonard Bernstein's like barely making it. He's turning blue. He's coughing. And I have a really funny story to tell you before that concert. During the concert, I believe we were playing a Britain piece in the first half that I didn't play on. And so I'm just standing on the side of the stage listening to the first half. First half's over. You hear clapping. And I see Bernstein's manager come out with a glass of scotch and a cigarette. And Leonard comes off the stage while they're still clapping. And he does this. He goes... chugs the scotch, goes back out for his bow, and I'm standing there like...
before the bow. I love it.
Right, it was awesome. So we go out, we play Copeland's third.
To be clear, that was before the bow at the end of the first half. Yeah, that
correct.
was
Absolutely. He lived his life to the fullest.
Right.
So we go out, we play Copeland's third. It's one of the most phenomenal performances because we know he's in ill health.
Right.
And we're just like, we're just playing. We're just, let's go, let's do this. And it was the most electrifying, uplifting concert I've still ever played. I get goosebumps even talking about it.
It was amazing.
And we did it. We played it. And I believe the following evening, they announced that he was too sick to go on the tour, and they canceled the tour.
Yeah. That was supposed to be in September, right? In the very next month. Yeah.
Absolutely. We're supposed to go to Spain, Germany, and Austria. And I still have the booklet and the T-shirt, the tour shirt. However, it's and somebody posted some videos of the rehearsals last year on YouTube.
That was amazing.
And I'm just sitting there like, wow. I remember every second of that. I couldn't believe that I was there. Sometimes when you're young and you're questioning whether you're doing the right thing, and you're in a situation, you're like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. I'm playing, Copeland's third with Bernstein. This is how a career should start, So, and it's amazing. The musicians in that orchestra, they're playing all over the world. We still keep in touch. It's pretty incredible. And I press that to my NYU students to do your summer music festivals, to surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do, performing with them. You make friends for life. These friends hire you later. You hire them. Summer music festivals are pretty amazing. And we still go back to Tanglewood every summer just for the hell of it, bring my kids and lay on a lawn and listen to great music. But it was just one of those things that I just was so determined to be somewhere during the summer playing. And it just happened to be Tanglewood. And it just happened to be 3 summers in a row. And I would rather not be anywhere else at that point in time in my life.
Have you ever heard a recording of that Copeland 3 concert? Does one exist? I mean, I'm sure they recorded it, but I've never come across it. You have?
Yes. So when those videos were posted, somebody, I forget who, through Messenger sent the whole recording, and it's pretty wild.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty incredible stuff.
I mean, the way I remember it as, yes, I was only 14, but I had already seen the Boston Symphony over 100 times, and I mean, I'd seen a lot of stuff, and I remember the trumpet entrance in the fanfare for the common man within the fifth movement. It was like unison, like true unison. I mean,
it's crazy.
It was unbelievable. Man. I mean, it sounded like one person. It floored me.
It's just like being on the Patriots,
Right.
You have a great coach, you're going to win the Super Bowl.
Right.
You would do anything for your coach.
Right.
And it's like that whole thing. There's Bernstein. We're just like, let's go, man. Let's just do this. Right. We're here playing with Bernstein. He really loves education. He loves teaching us. He'd come to our parties. He was just always hanging out with us, and we were just hanging out with this iconic figure that, wrote West Side Story, that wrote he's a great composer, great conductor. And it was just the greatest place to be at that particular time. And I'm blessed to have been there to take part in it.
So that night, I actually stuck around after the concert and met Bernstein. And I remember the line of people to get back to his dressing room. I remember seeing Rolf Smedvig was like 30th in line. And I was like, oh man, Rolf is waiting in a long line. It's like, yeah, you're important when. But by the time I got back there, it was like, I don't know, it was 11:45 p.m. My curfew was 11:30. Some college RA tried to yell at me, and I was like, dude, I just met Bernstein, and he wasn't having it, and I wasn't having it from him. It was a little bit of a standoff. But anyway, When I got back there, he was drinking scotch and smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he was giving like genuine. I mean, he like genuinely spent like, we've all been in receiving lines like that, all three of us, and you can kind of give your time to people, or you can. I mean, he only spent 45 to 60 seconds with me, but he was fully present for those 45 to 60 seconds. I mean, This is a man that was literally dying, and it was almost midnight, and he was like dialed into me and saw how excited I was, and asked me a couple of questions about studying at BUTI, and he was what an amazing human. So
absolutely. I conduct now, and I recall being at a party with him that summer, and I asked him, "Hey, how do you conduct without a score?" And he said to me, and I still abide by this today. He said, "I put the time in, and I know every note. I know every accent. I know every crescendo. I know everything that's in that score before I step up on the podium." And that's what I do. That's what Leonard Bernstein told me to do back in 1990. And so that's, it's some great advice.
If it was good enough for him, it's good enough for you.
Absolutely.
That's how Lance and I prepare for podcast interviews, actually. Yeah, is that we know everything about the person. Mm-hmm. So anyway, sorry, Lance, continue. You're trying to ask a question and I'm being a jackass.
What's that look like? What's that process? You start where if you're going to learn a new score?
I sit down at the piano and I score read it on the piano. So then I'll focus and try to play all the string parts. And then I just then I start the listening process. I listen by every instrument. I go through the first violins without looking at anything else. Go back, start again. Go through the second violins. Go through every instrument from the beginning of the piece to the end of the piece. It's a long process, but that's how I do it. And so I know, violas too. You have to learn how to read in all the clefs. Bassoon always changes to 3 different clefs. So you just have to know everything and what everybody has. Wait, why is my computer dying? Okay, I have to plug it in. But so it's a long process. A lot of the pieces that I choose to conduct, I already know. So that the process isn't as tedious as it is with something that I don't know. Like I'm conducting a Tony DiLorenzo horn concerto. We start rehearsals October 4th. They have yet to send me the score, but I have the piano part. So I've just been playing the piano part every morning, every day, and just making sure that I know how the piece is going to sound when we get the actual score. And funny, the piece was written for Bill Vermeulen. And on the YouTube, there's a performance of him on YouTube playing it, and there's like 8 measures here that are added that aren't in the piano part, and 3 measures there that aren't in the piano part. And I'm like, can you get me the score, please? So in that case, it's like, okay, I know how it sounds, I know what to do, but still, there's going to be a lot of work to do, kind of some last minute things. But Sibelius 2, I'm conducting, I know that, and Beethoven's Emperor No. 5, I didn't know that. So I've been listening to that in my car since we programmed it back in June. There's been 2 CDs in my car, Beethoven's 5th Piano Concerto, and what's the other piece that's escaping me? It's escaping me. Oh, the Brahms Serenade, the D major Serenade. What a great piece. So it's just constant listening, and then I just sit down and look at each individual score. And it's a blast to get up there, teach, conduct, have fun, smile. I'm not a yeller. I'm not a, I admit when I make a mistake, which I never do. I'm just kidding.
You would admit it if one
I would admit
happened.
it if I did anything. But that's a whole other thing. Conducting is something that I hope to really build upon, because I have an 8 and a 3-year-old. They could kick me in my mouth with their heel, and then what am I going to do? Right. So I'm really working on just having conducting be a major part of my life as I'm turning 54, 55, and because you can conduct till you're 90. If you still have your hearing and eyesight. But
so that hasn't stopped a bunch of conductors.
No, right. No, not at all. But
the problem with Wayne is that he has self-awareness. That might hold him back from truly being incompetent on the podium. So you're going to have to develop losing that, I think, and then you could have as much longevity as you could ever dream of.
It's nuts. So that's
cigarettes, baby.
That's so much fun, man. So All right.
So how do you prioritize your, there's, when you get to a certain point, the opportunities come at you fast and furious. And if you want to bring it as a conductor, like you clearly do, and you still are bringing it as a teacher and you're bringing it as a player, how do you, I guess the word would be prioritize, but how do you make time for all of those things in a way that allows you to do them at the level?
It's a tough question. You just have to make good choices, and you have to be true to what you really want to do with your life. Having an 8 and a 3-year-old now, and like my schedule. So I'm also a band director at a private school. So I do that in the morning. It's 5 minutes from my house, and then I do NYU in the afternoons, and then I play a show at night. That's been basically my schedule for the last 2 years. So when I get home at 11:30 and all the kids are asleep, and thank God my wife is there, I can stay up till 2 a.m, study, prepare, do all my stuff at night, basically, so that I'm really on top of everything. But conducting it's what it is. There's a schedule. It's all about getting things in advance and putting that schedule down and knowing exactly, like the Met Opera, their schedule comes out in February. So as soon as their schedule comes out, I put in my book when Turandot is, when Bohème is, when Aida is being played, because I do all the stage bands. I know when they're going to hire me. So it's all about just getting as much information about what you think you're going to be hired for, though I know I'll be hired for that stuff well in advance. Westchester Philharmonic, American Composers Orchestra, they all come out with their schedules. They come out in August or, late July. Do I hear a dog?
You just heard
August,
mine, yes.
Okay, cool. Or August and late July. So it's all about just looking at your schedule and knowing exactly when you're going to have time to study, when you're going to have time. Practice has been sort of rough for me recently. I just haven't had the time to practice, and that kind of sucks. So I've developed a great warm-up, like a good 5 to 10 minute warm-up that's phenomenal that I can do, and I can build confidence in making sure I'm going to play through the shows, play through the symphony orchestra gigs. So it's nuts. But I am, you just have to really be on top of scheduling.
Yeah, that's really crazy. The playing thing gets harder and harder, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Although, I don't know. I practiced every day of my life for 35 years before I started taking off and being, I don't have to practice every day. So I'm not at that point where I feel like I'm losing any skills, and I'm practicing a lot less. But I know that at some point it's going to, jump up and grab me at some gig and be like, oh my God. But that hasn't happened yet. So I do know that I need to get back on a major practice plan if I want to, sound good. So, but for now, it's just working out.
The barking dog reminds me that Jim Nova did a wonderful thing for us in setting up a page devoted to the brass program at the Mary Pappert School of Music at Duquesne University.
What a professional segue.
So if you click on the show notes, there's a link on the show notes to a page created just for the listeners of the Brass Junkies. That's pretty good. Junkies.
Wow.
Wayne listens to every piece. He's going to conduct like 500 times. We can't even pronounce the name of our own podcast correctly.
The Bracketies Junkies.
Bracketies Junkies. That's good, man.
So if you click on that link, then you will have an opportunity to see who teaches there, what groups you can play with, and what sorts of opportunities await you in beautiful and sunny Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So very, very, very big special thanks to Jim Woof Woof Nova for making that possible.
Awesome.
So what is it like playing in one of the stage bands for an opera at the Met?
It's phenomenal. And just, it's funny because my last year at Juilliard back in 90, there was a 1-year position opening. And I just started studying with Mark Gould that year. And so they asked me to audition. And I prepared properly and won the job for 1 year. So I'm thrown in the pit playing Parsifal. Parsifal was the first opera. And so now there's an international audition. I was automatically put in the finals. I did not get it. I believe that's when Pete Bond won it. And I pretty much thought my life was over. My career was done. But as a result of playing in the Met that one year, I got offers to play with Orpheus and these other groups. And so the reputation was building. And the Met kept calling me. I'm like, oh, wow, they're calling me to play stage band. They're calling me to play in the pit. They're calling me to go on tours with them. I wasn't aware that they were going to continue to call me. So, fast forward to 2019, from 1990, I'm still playing stage bands. Aida on stage in full Egyptian gear with the herald trumpets, La Boheme marching down steps in French army gear or whatever. That I don't even know. Playing Boheme at the end of Act 2, it's amazing. Tannhäuser, when you're on stage dressed, playing absolutely clear, absolutely perfect, nothing beats it. And I don't worry about getting nervous. Aida's kind of rough because you have to stand on a 20-foot platform for a half an hour. That can be rough if you haven't slept well or, ate a burrito before you get up there and play. But basically, it's just one of the most incredible experiences. Always has been, always will be. And we get to hang out with, Domingo and these amazing singers that we're in the hallway with them. And we just say, hey, what's up? How you doing, Plassy? So
as he takes a long drag from a cigarette and pounds a scotch,
right.
He says, time for rehearsal, Wayne.
And a burrito.
So it's been a good run. It's been a really good run. I hope they continue to call me. We'll see what happens, but that's been one of the more steadier things I've done for a long time. And you never know at the Met. Sometimes they don't do a lot of stage bands. Other years they do a whole bunch. So I never say no. I'm always there, and the pay is phenomenal. Just have to throw that in there,
right?
And it's worth it. It's worth every penny. So it's been a good run. It's been incredible.
So do you have anxiety, even though you are obviously really established in the, not just in terms of the quantity of the work and the quality, but for how long you've been doing it. So you're obviously a very well-known commodity in town. But is it ever scary that you don't have, I'm guessing, like any one income source that could cover all of your living needs? Like, do you still kind of worry? Like, I think all of us classical musicians can be wired that, like, oh, this might dry up or this might end, or do you just do your thing and let it take care of itself?
Yeah, that's a good question. I sort of got into the freelance scene here when there was still a scene.
Right.
I'm not saying there isn't a scene now, but there's, considerably less things to do here.
Right.
But things like the Met Opera have really kept the income set in a way where, how do I say it? The hardest thing as a freelance musician is that your salary does do this.
Yes.
And so
up and down,
we have
he's
to
showing, yeah.
Look 7, 8, 9 months ahead and just estimate what we're going to make and where things are going to be. And then, I've been playing Broadway shows. Thank God for Broadway shows. I've been, it's just, you have that option to take off when you want. Broadway was kind of interesting because when I was at Juilliard, a guy just walked up to me. He had heard me play and said, "Hey, would you like to play on Broadway?" And I'm like, "Sure." I didn't know what Broadway was. I was there to get an orchestral job, And he hooked me up with this trumpet player, Wilmer Wise, who was playing Into the Woods at the time. And he said, "You just take this music home, learn the book, play it like me." And so I did that. And before I knew it, I'm collecting a paycheck while I'm at school. And that sort of inspires you to show up, keep your mouth shut, and sound good. And that was my mantra, my goal. And as a result of playing on Broadway, I was getting asked to play other gigs, and I had business cards. And so we just developed a reputation. I was still wanting orchestral jobs. And I'm like, why do I want orchestral jobs? I'm here in New York City, playing with thousands of different musicians, not seeing the same people every day. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But the reputation was built. And so I always make sure that I'm prepared, ready to go on any gig. And basically it's just sounding as great as you can at all times. That's the challenge. I tell my students all the time, master sight reading.
Yes.
I can put anything on my music stand, play through it top to bottom, and make it sound as if I've practiced it hundreds of times. Violin books, clarinet books, reading in the bass clef, anything. I've always challenged myself to always make sure when I go into a recording session that I'm going to have the sound that the person who wrote the music wants. And I just keep my mouth shut. And if I make a mistake, you make a mistake. You don't kick yourself. You don't throw things. You just go back and play it again, even better. And that's the challenge. So I never really worry. Once in a while when I do play a concerto, I can be a little bit, I wonder how this is going to go tonight. Even if you've practiced, you're there, you're out there in front of the whole orchestra. And I don't do that a lot, but when I do, that's really the only time where I'm concerned. But as far as income, you just have to really be on top of what like when the Met schedule comes out, I know how much each show pays, and you have to put it in. I still handwrite it in a notebook by month, and make sure I know when those slow moments are going to be. And the show thing is always weird because sometimes shows close within 2 weeks, sometimes they close within 7 weeks. This year we splurged on a trip to St. Lucia back in May because we hadn't done anything like that in a long time. So we splurged. And then 3 weeks later, they announced that My Fair Lady was closing in 5 weeks. And I'm like, oh, no! So sometimes it still kicks you. Right now we're like, we have enough just to make sure the kids eat. And, but and NYU, I'm waiting for NYU to give me tenure so that I can be a full-time professor, get paid year-round as opposed to just September through May, which is unfortunate. But, if they come through and because things are going well, I know it's going well, then I can have that steady income. I have a steady income from the private school that I teach at. I'm a band director at a private school 5 minutes from my house, which is cool too. I teach 3rd through 8th grade. I actually teach trombone, which is a blast. And that's helped my trumpet chops. Oh my God. I started just teaching trombone and I put the trumpet on my face and I'm like, zing, I guess you're just using muscles that I never used before. But yeah, I keep notebooks. I keep track of, I estimate that here's what this is going to be. Here's what I assume I'm going to make this month. And you have to sort of just stay on top of it. You can't just spend. So it's been interesting. We have a house, kids, tree-lined street. It's beautiful. I love coming home. Backyard, and it works. I don't really have to worry about it.
What do you do, or how do you counsel students who had the position that you had, which is, I want to do the orchestral thing. And I don't want to say, this is overstating it, but in a way it sort of blinded you to the other opportunities. And then when you started taking the other opportunities, then it seems like that really caught fire with you and you saw the value in doing that. And you, I'm sure, undoubtedly have students who come at you with that same attitude. And how do you talk to them about that?
Well, I just tell them, just be prepared to play Ein Heldenleben, 80 times in 2 weeks, period. You have to really be on top of it and completely be passionate about what you want. I kind of burned out on playing excerpts. I got tired of playing, Petrushka over and over and over and over and over and over. And Petrushka, Pines of Rome. And then I got back into it and started auditioning later on just because I felt like I needed something different in my life. But you have to have the regimented, disciplined, passionate practice and seek out people, when they come to town. I remember Mike Sachs, when he used to come to town, I would always, give him a call and play for him. And he was always gracious. Thank God for Mike Sachs. You have to, just seek out people, find, you have to find. Now the internet is great. You have everything at, you can just go online and there's like this masterclass app now that if you need to know something, it's there. Back in my day, someone would send me a cassette tape of Manny Laureano and here's how you do auditions. You have to find stuff, but now it's all available to you. But I just teach passion. I teach determination, goals, and, just think if you don't practice one day and you want an orchestral job, there's somebody else who's going to practice 2 hours more than you and who's going to, get that job and make $1 million in their lifetime. And while you just can't be lazy and just assume. You have to know exactly what you need to do and be confident and able to pick up your horn, play an excerpt without even warming up, and play the hell out of it and put it back in your case. You have to be that on top of what you need to do. And and we see what happens. I mean, I've only been, I've taught at Princeton, but the Princeton students are all Chinese philosophy majors, pre-med, and they play the hell out of the instrument, but they're not trying to be, orchestra musicians. Same at Columbia when I taught there. But NYU, since this is my third year, I have at least 3 students, 1 trombonist, 1 trumpet so far that I really think could get an orchestral job if they stay on the path that they're on. And that they're going to be studying with Pete Bond, and Tom Houchin is one of the trombone teachers. He has one of these trombone students like full speed ahead. Just got into New York Youth Symphony. We're preparing them, and you just make sure that they're determined, passionate, and don't give up.
Where do you see the career field going? How do you've seen it from lots of different perspectives,
right?
And you're always looking down the road. So at a macro level, how do you see things evolving or changing or growing or shrinking? Or
nowadays, you can. A lot of people that are successful nowadays do it through the internet. They start a YouTube channel, and somebody discovers them on YouTube. I do a beer show, but I'm not trying to be like popular beer show. Have you seen that? The Wayne DeMain's beer course with Trumpet?
I have not.
No.
You have not? Oh my God. I can't believe that. Oh my God.
I know. Wait.
I haven't done one in a while, but I think I've done about 50 shows. But I teach my students to go on the internet, man. There's an app, acapella app, where you can just sing, play trumpet, put it out there, and get people to know who you are. There's different options nowadays. So we do that, and I really stress the business aspect, learning how to write a grant proposal, learning how to start a non-for-profit organization, learning how to join organizations that get your name out there and get you to the chamber music groups and ensembles where you can get hired to do things and do it yourself. Be your own businessman. So we do that a lot too. So and there's still people that want to hire you. There's still people who want to hire brass quintets. You just have to find your niche. You just have to figure out what you want to do. If you play trumpet and you're at NYU and you don't really think you want to get an orchestral job, you can just create something that you're passionate about and just go for it. I know that sounds simple, but that's kind of what we stress.
It is simple. It's not easy, but those don't mean the same thing. Yeah,
right.
You have to define success for yourself. You can't be trying to fulfill the dreams of your teacher or of your parents or of what your perception of what your dreams are supposed to look like.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, after you lost the second audition with the Met, then I think you're quote unquote supposed to then just go win another major orchestral job so that you can be validated again, right? I mean, correct. And then it's just like, well, I've won 2 out of 3. I'm still a big deal, and I'm personally happy that you didn't, because I think that you've done way more stuff like that has a lot of impact, and you would have had a lot of impact if you'd gone that way. I just think everything happens for a reason, and you've just had such a wide. You've had an impact in such a wide way and in such an array of different ways. It's awesome what you keep on doing. We could talk to you about everything you've got going on for like 3 or 4 hours. I mean, it's crazy. We're not even going to be able to scratch the surface on all this stuff, because I wasn't joking when I said I think you're the busiest trumpet player in all of New York City. If you're not the busiest, then you're one of them. So, you're. I don't know.
It's been a good run. I've been here for 33 years. So
wow, crazy.
Yeah, it's been so much fun, and the best part is I love what I do.
Right.
I don't come home and kick things and call people names. I come home and I'm happy because I've played a show. I've played with musicians. I get to play with a lot of musicians, and that's the best part. I don't, like I mentioned earlier, I don't get to see the same people every day.
Right.
It's, one day it's an orchestra here, next day it's a recording session, the next day it's, who knows, an opera somewhere else, So that's the best part. You get to see and play with thousands of musicians, and it's awesome.
That's awesome. We are almost out of time, but I would be remiss to not ask you about recording with Prince before we are done, because, Lance and I have both recorded with Prince a whole bunch of times, but we want to, not so much, but we want to hear about your experience with that.
Not that Prince.
What?
Well, there was a time where I was playing with a Prince cover band in the Village. Our gigs were like at midnight after shows, 1 a.m. shows, and I'm like, wow. And then this guy showed up one day, and he's like, I just played with Prince. He may need a brass section. Would you be interested? I'm like, yeah, sure, man. Yeah, here's my number, whatever. And then 3 weeks later, I get a call from Prince's manager. He's like, hey, would you like to come to Paisley Park? And I'm like, yes. So they flew us up there, limo, the whole deal, hotel. And we arrived at the hotel, and we get a call that Prince, he wants us to rehearse. So we go to Paisley Park. We pull in, and there's this huge white factory-looking building. And listen, I've been the biggest Prince fan since his first album. In the Midwest, he was huge, way before Purple Rain. And
sure.
And so I knew all the tunes. And so there we are. It's like me, trombone player, and the sax player who who I met, who asked us to do it. And we're on stage with him, with his band. And we don't know really why or what we're doing. And he's just feeding us horn lines. And there's a couple of new tunes. And we're rehearsing other tunes that I sort of knew. And it was like probably like an hour of this. And I'm like, and I always have manuscript paper. So I started writing down on manuscript what he was teaching us. Because I'm like, you really never told us what we were doing. So, it was incredible. So that we're done rehearsing. It was like a 4-hour rehearsal. And then we go back to the hotel. And then he's like, I want you to record some tunes. So we go into his recording studio and record 3 songs. And then the next day there was some impromptu concert at Paisley Park at 2 a.m. And there's this line a mile long outside of Paisley Park. We play, we do all these things. And then we're done. And he looks at me and is like, are you going to stay? But at the time, I just got married. I just got in my first Broadway show. And I was just kind of like, I can't, but I really appreciate it. Let me know if you ever need me in the future. Never heard from him again. But the 3-day experience was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I did a top 10 moments of my career on Facebook a few years ago.
I remember that. That was cool.
Yeah, Leonard Bernstein, the Copeland concert was number 1.
Yep.
Prince was number 2.
Yeah.
That was just like an ultimate moment. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I could die and I'll be happy. That was... it was a great experience. The man, my best conversation I ever had with him was with Prince. We were talking about Gustav Mahler. Yes, he was asking me what I do. I was like, well, I'm a classical musician. I play Broadway too, but I love Mahler. He went into this whole thing about just hearing the Minnesota Symphony play Mahler's Third, and how much he really digs the emotional aspect and how he wants to be happy, but then it goes right back to the, I'm like looking at him like, who is this guy?
Wow.
So it was pretty incredible. That was like, to this day, I'm like, okay, people ask me that question. It's all about Prince.
Wow.
So yeah, it was an incredible experience.
Awesome. Yeah, I really loved that Facebook thing that you did a few years ago with the top 10. It was really cool. Like just the way you wrote it up and stuff. It was awesome. Yeah, it was great because that you could easily do that about 10 things that I've accomplished, but it was not at all that. You was like all the human, which you would never do that, but because I know you, but it was just the way that you wrote those things. You were like sharing the emotions that you got to experience through all of these experiences, and it was experience through experiences. That's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely, man. It was fun to do that.
Yeah, it was deep. It was an experience hearing me talk about experiences. But speaking of experiences, we need to thank Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for the Brass Junkies. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model tuba mouthpiece and the Lance LaDuke Model euphonium mouthpiece.
Sweet.
You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All right, so we are just about out of time. He's checking the lights again. He's going to swap some headphones. Please tell me that you show up to conducting gigs with like a briefcase with like 30 batons, and that you swap out 4 of them.
Are you kidding me? I only use batons at concerts. To be truly honest with you, I'm not that kind of guy.
Oh, I know.
I've seen that before, and I'm like, what are you? Do you see the wood on here and the plastic? It's. And I'm like, are you effing kidding me? Whatever. It's like, yeah.
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have strong opinions about that. So
no.
So I know that you know our dear friend Jens, and I think that with the variety of experiences in a professional manner, and the as you've talked about, like the thousands of incredible musicians, you've probably got a unique perspective on this. That our dear friend Jens has been undergoing some chop problems for a long time, and we are. And you don't have to pretend that you haven't been hearing about this for, on every gig that you're on. But can you possibly offer some advice to our dear friend Jens in this very troubling time of need for him?
Well, Jens is true to me because we went to Juilliard together. We were in classes together. We sat next to each other in concerts. I can't imagine what he might be going through. And my advice to Jens is just to stop practicing. Just put it in the case, man. Just put it in the case. There's an opening
from the trumpet.
There's an opening at the post office down the street.
The Canadian post office, or the?
Yeah, I think he might make a good, postal person, delivering mail. I think that he would be, and he would dance and do splits and stuff for the people. I think they would love it. That would be huge.
Tall socks.
Oh my God, Jens! Wow.
Quit the trumpet and join the postal service. I like it.
Put it in the case, man. Yeah.
There
Absolutely.
You go. Well, we are going to we're going to have Wayne stick around here for the bonus episode, and that just might open with finding out what Jens Lindemann was like in class as an undergrad. I think that is where we're going to start there. So, Anyway, Wayne, this has been amazing. I'm so happy that we finally made this work. You were just as great as I knew you were going to be. So, thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure to be here, man. Glad it worked out.
And that is going to do it for another episode of The Brass Junkies. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to hear the bonus episode featuring today's guest, please visit patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to learn how you can support the show and instantly access all bonus materials, as well as gain access to a special patron-only Facebook group. The Brass Junkies is produced by the amazing, wonderful, and truly inspirational Will Houchin. The theme music was composed by Fernando Dados and performed by Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. We are at Pray for Jens on Twitter and Instagram, and have a Facebook page at facebook.com/prayforjens. You can find out more about the Brass Junkies and all the other Pedal Note Media podcasts at pedalnotemedia.com. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.